more support and rights for self-employed people in an independent report which has been commissioned by the government. The number of people working for themselves is at a record high of 4.6 million, and it's still rising. Entrepreneur Julie Dean has made this report. She's behind the Cambridge Satchel Company, and it calls for flexible mortgages and enhanced maternity leave for the self-employed. Really like to hear your experiences of working for yourself. Do get in touch on 85058. Ken Horn is a business startup expert and author of Everyday Entrepreneurs. Morning, Ken.
Good morning. Good morning. Is it Sam or Claire?
It's Sam here. Hello.
Hello, Sam. Good morning.
Now, Julie Dean, who we know, of course, as I said, from the Cambridge Satchel Company, one of the findings of this report is that she believes there should be better education at school level, not even at college level or apprenticeship level, but at school level, of teaching young people about how to do things like tax returns and everyday accounts.
Yep.
A lot of the time, we don't even know to begin where to start until we're in business.
Indeed. And I couldn't agree more with many of Julie's recommendations and findings. My fear is, my concern with the report is that none of this is new or particularly groundbreaking. For example, we've been working with colleges and schools for a good many years, running short courses in enterprise and entrepreneurship. The problem is that it's not taken seriously enough, and it's not mandated or compulsory as part of the curriculum. We've set up a number of courses with colleges nationwide. The problem is it's an option for a lot of students sitting vocational topics like construction or business, and the problem being, of course, if you make it optional, guess what? A lot of students discard the option. So we've got to get serious about it. We've got to mandate this and make it compulsory.
What support is there from the government at the moment? There is a whole portal, isn't there, online with lots of explainers and information. How easy is that to navigate?
Not very, in truth. In fact, we run a program called Kick Off in Business, nationwide program helping people start businesses. Short courses, packed full of all the information that people need. But the important thing is we protect people from the information that they don't need. There's oodles of information, Sam, when you first start a business, much of which is not needed until, maybe 6, 12, 18 months down the line. The problem is with an online provision is that we control the volume. So we go in, we turn it up full blast. How are we able to separate the information that's important now as opposed to the information that perhaps, we don't need just yet? So as part of our activity nationwide, we specialise in providing people with the information that they need now, as opposed to the ocean of information that they will need at some point in terms of their business development.
It seems to be as well, Ken, quite a lot of confusion around what rights you have as a self-employed person. I'm thinking specifically of if you're self-employed, say you're a driver for a firm that has a really big contract. You don't officially work for that firm. They need you, of course, to fulfill their contract, but quite often when working hours and times are changed, people think, well, I haven't got any rights, I'm self-employed. Is that the case?
Well, to be fair, over the last few years, we have seen a huge, as you mentioned in your intro, we've seen a huge increase in the number of people self-employed. And of course, many of those people are people that are on perhaps 0 hours contracts, because when the economy is in a period of instability, of course, employers are a little bit nervous about re-engage or full re-engagement, i.e. employment, and therefore self-employment becomes an attractive option for employers because, let's be honest, it makes people far more dispensable.
Well, that was going to be something I was going to ask you about. We're talking about this huge surge in self-employed people. Is it people grasping and being filled with this spirit of entrepreneurship and wanting to go it alone, or is it actually having no other option in some cases?
I think it's a bit of both, in truth. We've done quite a lot of work in this regard, and to give you some idea, over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, we've met over 4,500 people that were thinking about starting a business, and you get a mixed bag. You get people that have to do it because they've got no other option. But I have to say, one of the encouraging things is a lot of people are choosing self-employment as a serious career option. And what's quite interesting, if you sort of plot why people start businesses, often they're taking something that they've got genuine interest in and perhaps expanding it and developing it into a business.
We've had quite a few comments about the fact that, when you're self-employed, someone saying only employ self-employed people because contractors don't get ill. And I know I've been to work so many times during my period, many years, a decade of being self-employed. I really shouldn't have gone to work, actually, but I also thought, I've got to pay the gas bill at the end of the month, I'd better go to work. And sometimes it's not, we kind of, we say we power through as self-employed people, but sometimes it's really hard when you go to work when you're ill, and when you do have periods of sickness, what can you do? What support can you get?
Well, I don't disagree. I mean, there are many challenges of being self-employed, but you won't be surprised to hear me, support, the idea of, as many people as possible being self-employed. I think it's important to remember that, whilst there are challenges, but there are some huge rewards in terms of being self-employed. And so I think you need to balance, any concerns or worries that people have with, the fact that self-employed is hugely rewarding.
Finally, Ken, some other institutions need to catch up a bit. That's another recommendation of this report. For example, getting a mortgage, especially as a newly self-employed person, really tough.
Say again, sorry, Sam.
Mortgages I'm talking about, Ken. I said finally. Other institutions need to catch up a bit and work.
They do, and again, recommendations made by Julie surrounding tax and perhaps other more. But once again, our findings are that there has been a softening in terms of the loan and mortgage market, and it is a little bit easier for people to perhaps get a mortgage or get a loan. I think Julie mentioned in her recommendations that the Startup Loan Company has been set up specifically by the government to help people setting up in business. You can get up to, I think it's £25,000 unsecured from the Startup Loan scheme. So there is a little bit of a softening in that regard, but I do recognise that there are still some challenges.
Okay, Ken, thanks very much indeed. Ken Horner, business startup expert. Your experiences really welcome. Do you agree with Ken? There's so many positives that they outweigh the negatives, even though those negatives are, really difficult to tackle a lot of times. I'd like to hear from you. 85058, please, where you can get in touch today, because I will be talking to the report author, Julie Dean, just after 8 o'clock this morning. Any questions from her? What would you ask? 85058 or at BBC 5 Live on social media. It's now nearly 7:15.
This